So, welcome to the Self-Care Onboard Podcast. And today we're going to have Tharin Tan. Hi, Tharin. How are you doing?
Hi, very good today. How are you?
I'm doing well. So, Tharin, where are you at the moment?
I'm in Singapore, a rainy Singapore, which has in recent days been nice and cool. It's been a nice difference. So very happy.
That's good. So, you actually have the Singapore Yacht Show coming up, don't you?
Yes, next week. So very excited to check out all the offerings, meet people in the industry, and just see how things are evolving. Decarbonization, both on maritime and pleasure craft, is accelerating. It's nice to see the topics coming more and more as events come by. So I'm very looking forward to what brings in this year's edition of the Singapore Yacht Festival.
Perfect. Great. So, coming to that. So, Tharin, you actually are co-founder of Pasini Yachts.
That's
And the
right.
reason being why the reason being why I'm inviting you to Self-Care on Board is that you have also undergone your own journey when it comes to well-being and also when it comes to self-care and business, because self-care doesn't just encompass our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. It also actually encompasses what we do for a living. So please give us an idea. Who's Tharin Tan? Where do you come from? Where were you born? And what was your journey so far?
Sure. So I will call myself Southeast Asian. If you put me anywhere in Southeast Asia, most countries, people will think I'm local. But I'm a mix of heritage of Malaysian and Thai. Was born and have lived in Singapore most of my life. Did my higher education in the U.S. Have worked around the world pretty much geographically, and really had a very not a linear career, let's put it that way. So that has been an interesting process, and it's not necessarily one that is very embraced in a traditional Asian environment. So I'm very Western in that sense. How I've crafted my career is really just looking to see where I wanted to be exposed more, where I felt I was lacking, and never thought I would be more on the commercial and sales side of things, but kind of grew into that over the years. So my background is actually as an engineer. I figured out very quickly I was a very bad engineer, but good enough to understand deep technical topics and have interest around business. And I'm a business nerd, and I enjoy talking and reading and learning about different business models, and then melding that together with my ability to understand very complex technology and see how do I build a business around some deep IP, intellectual property. So yeah, that's in essence who I am. I'm a bit of a nerd. And so I get into rabbit holes a lot. But as you get further along in life and in business, you know that 80% is good enough. So that also means in life, it's 80% of everything is good enough as well. So that has been the process of maturation that I've had to go through, and I'm now into my 40s, and I feel like I'm in a good space, understanding who I am as a person, but also being in the heaviest time of life, as far as being the sandwich of having obligations to the parents, obligations to the kids, and trying to push your career as far as you can. So having all that come at once means that then self-care and has to be prioritized. As there's no question about that.
So tell me something about your self-care practice.
Yeah, definitely a work in progress. Let's put it that way. But I think fundamentally what I've learned is to be gentle on oneself.
Yeah.
on the days that things just don't work out, and it's okay. And that's something I've had to learn a little bit more in the hard way, and to really change my internal self-talk and be able to pat myself on the back and say you're okay. And I think that has been the biggest evolution for me in self-care in the last 5 years, let's say. um, who I am today is a much stronger person than I was before. And I've gone through pretty trying times, and where I've come out of it and looked back and said, hey, the Tharin of the previous years before that could not have done this. So that just means I'm in a better place.
See, also just coming back because, I'm half Indonesian, Chinese, German. So I know that category of being perfect, and you say 80% is fine, and actually patting yourself on the back and like, hey, you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
These trying times, is there anything you can share what you have experienced and how did you get out of it? Because this podcast is obviously for the yachting industry, but pretty much for anyone. It doesn't matter if this is a family office, if this is someone who works in corporate. You have maybe most likely experience already before burnout or even a burnout or any other scenarios where you thought, wow, okay, I just got through this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think ultimately the biggest thing is to not be afraid of asking for help, and not thinking that you have to do it all on your own. And one lesson I learned, thankfully, very early on in my career, probably 10 years ago, more at least, was really around stop trying when things aren't working, because you can work yourself into a tizzy. Like, so at some point, stop trying and be present and just accept that that's the situation you're in, and try and just take a 10,000 foot view and say, okay, it is what it is, right? And not try and fix things all the time. As an engineer, you train to fix things.
Yes.
So, how do you stop solutioning and just say, I'm just going to leave that here, and I'm just going to go do something that adds value to my life, adds joy to my life, because that's how you then regain perspective and come back into that environment where you have to deal with it. Because there's no point just trying and trying and trying and then, basically not getting anywhere.
Absolutely. You go against resistance. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, coming back to your career, like at the moment, you have totally changed. And how come you have changed? Because I'm trying to also, the audience, to give people an idea. Hey, you know what? What do you do after yachting? What do you do after you have been crew on board? The job being crew on board is not for everyone. It's really not for everyone. Yet again, many people say like, oh, it's a very peculiar industry. I'm like, well, you know what? PR, pharmaceuticals, you've got some other hardcore industries there. So, it has its perks and its downsides. Can you give us an idea, an example how you have changed your life, and you are your own entrepreneur, you co-founder of Pasini Yachts. How did you get to this stage? And where did this come from?
It wasn't deliberate. It wasn't deliberate, but it was a process of exploration that I was very deliberate about, to say, okay, if I'm not happy doing this, what could I be happy with? And I think the other thing that helped me along the way was the permission from my wife to make the choices that were good for me. and not necessarily say, oh, we have a family, we have this, you need to go and find a job real quick or something. So being given that mission, and being fortunate enough to be in that position to make choices is something I don't take for granted. But at the same time, I'm also very much a person who is big on agency. If you want something, if you're not happy with something, take ownership, do something about it. And whether it's going out and talking to people, reading books, going to events, podcasts, going on YouTube, going on AI, whatever it is, there's so many mediums now to learn, to reinvent it, but you have to take ownership of it and be able to say, is your life what you want it to be? And if it's not, then how can you find the resources to make that change that elevates your life and brings you joy?
I just love that you say that, because you go back to self accountability, responsibility, having that discipline, and knowing that you have the choice. You have the choice, yeah. And also something which really important, I think, with self care when it comes to relationships. Like you said, you are aligned with your wife who has said, yes, I'm supporting whatever you are also looking at, and you both have your own lives, but yet again together. And that's something that we are not used to growing up this way, are we?
Mm-hmm.
Not especially in the Asian culture, and this is really nice because it shows that even in relationships, self-care is important, and it can be done in form of self-realization, growth, development. So tell me something about Pasini Yachts. I mean, obviously, this is a yachting channel. Give you an idea. So, guys, just for you to let you know that we have collaborated for the last 6 months, Tharin and I. And I'm a great supporter of Pasini Yachts because we are currently raising funds. So whenever you do hear of anyone who would be interested to get involved in environmental impact-driven startups, let us know. So please give us an idea about Pasini Yachts.
Absolutely. I'll be glad to. So Pasini Yachts is the genesis of three automotive engineers who have grown up in the age of electrification of the automobile. And that was the biggest change to the industry since the automobile was invented. We take a lot of those learnings and are keen to bring it into marine, and that's a tale as old as time. Technology has always come from the automotive space into the marine space. Where we see the lowest hanging fruit of bringing it into marine is just elevating the standards of engineering and manufacturing in this industry. Um, Boat building, shipbuilding, the shipyard model has persisted in its current form for generations. It hasn't really changed. The amount of integration at the shipbuilding level is really on individual components being sourced in and integrated as far as just being installed onto the vehicle. There isn't a lot of vehicle level integration. So I'll bring up an analogy. If you switch the key on in your car actually does an automatic vehicle check. This does not exist in boats, in ships. It is, or not to the extent that it does in cars because of the architecture that's built. So if you look at an EV today, everything has to be interconnected and harnessed because in the end, the ultimate metric of an EV is how much batteries do you put on board and how far can you go. So in order for you to maximize that, everything else from a power perspective, from a heat perspective, has to be hyper optimized. So this is the difference in engineering that's going to be in an electric vehicle, air, land, or sea, versus your conventional. So the amount of precision that goes into that is simply much higher. And so the outcome is a vehicle that is going to be much more intuitive, much more customer centric, or where the user interface and user experience is very harmonized. And ultimately, we feel going to be a better experience, independent of the powertrain. Let's put it that way. But the powertrain is the driver towards better engineering. So where we are different from others is that we see the ability for us to build platforms of technology, multiple types of technology that enable decarbonization of marine at scale, starting from the segment of motor yachts. So that's where we're starting. And ultimately as well, we see the opportunity in yachting, especially when it comes to a generational shift in assets being transferred in the world, and consumer tastes completely changing. So how can we, as a new brand with no prior obligations, from a white sheet of paper, build the world's most innovative and attractive boat brand, yacht brand? So that's the ambition, that's the goal. And yeah, it's been a great ride with myself, Niklo, and Stefano so far, and the additional team that has come on board, like yourselves, and our close partners right now. We're speeding as fast as we can into the market, and yeah, we hope to be at boat shows close to people to show yacht shows, and show them just the result and of good engineering, and we're excited to be able to do that as quickly as possible.
So yeah, so looking back, sustainability and self-care is very close to each other. Let's figure out, we are going to create a future for the next generation to come. Decarbonization of the maritime sector. And I know most of you listeners most likely think like, oh gosh, electric engines, the batteries are expensive, there's not enough lithium. Can you just shed some light on this?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Well,
you know
actually,
this better than me here, and yeah, you can
sure.
explain this better.
Well, actually, the lithium is not as scarce as most people think. In fact, lithium prices have tanked in the past year. And the point is, we're not, we're actually a little bit more agnostic into what form of propulsion or what form of fuel you're burning. But our point is that, just like in the automotive industry, there is time and place and application for a certain type of propulsion. So electric is not for everything, not for everyone. But there should not just be diesel and gas or petrol in the industry. That just is not sustainable. And for pleasure applications, especially just sunset cruises and all that, we should ask ourselves, should we really be burning a finite resource of fossil fuels for that? Or should we be using a system that is probably fully electric, which makes more sense there, and is actually much more sustainable into the long run, and is actually recyclable? Yes, maybe not 100% recyclable, but
it's
70,
recyclable.
80%, 90%, and it keeps increasing, right? Whereas once you burn fuel, it's gone. So that's the point. So as the world goes further along, we will need more resources, more energy intensity. We don't have much more to pump out, right? So how can we make more usage of whatever is left and be more efficient? That's all it is. We're just saying, for the right type of application, maximize the efficiency of use. For maritime shipping, hard to decarbonize, yes. use what you need to use, but maybe explore other things like methanol, like ammonia, for hydrogen generation, whatever that is, right? But there should be a lot more looking into things and optimizing things for efficiency rather than saying, let's just keep a close mind because it's not worth building.
Well, the closed mind doesn't really work. So, yeah, absolutely. And so, what I can just sum up, Tharin, you have undergone your own transformation in your own life. Now, being in your 40s, you have 3 kids, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Three boys,
Yes.
yes.
3 boys. Wow. Respect. I just took care of 3 kids and it's a handful. So, yes. And looking at all of this, you have transformed from being corporate engineering, different careers. You have also worked in your family business. You come from a family that has also its own business in Malaysia. So you have changed and reinvented yourself, transformed many times, I would say, created different lives. And also now, would you say Pasini Yachts is like kind of for you a purpose-driven, mission-driven story in your life where you're like, okay, let's do this, let's go for this. And also being an entrepreneur, a startup founder is not easy. So for those of you who have a great idea, listen to this now. Startup living is not easy. It ain't easy, especially if you have 3 kids. So tell me something about that.
Sure. The way I see it is, I never really set out in my career saying I want to be an entrepreneur. I just happened to kind of evolve along those lines. I always had it in my head for quite a long time. Oh, eventually I'll join my family business. But then after a while, I realized that's not me. I want to do something bigger than that. And interestingly enough, when I started, looking around for what to do and what project to work on and where do I invest in, and there was an internal rubric or a checklist in my mind, and it was only when it came to this that it was like, it checks off a lot of things. So the way I see what I'm doing right now is really more like it's like a master's thesis or a capstone project in my life because it takes all my experiences from all my previous roles before, all my exposure around the world, puts it all together, and the and my goal here is to say, how can I see this company from birth to a point where we're going to have happy customers, happy investors, happy workforce, a healthy top line, healthy bottom line, and we're creating good. And you can actually measure the good you create by carbon offset that you're abating, right? That's impact, that's purpose, and that's why for me it was, how can I use the time I have here to do good things. But for me also, most importantly, when I'm gone, I just want my kids to know I was a good dad. So that's the most important thing for me. While I do all this stuff, this is my fourth baby, basically. I have to remember not to forego the first three that I birthed, right? Well, my wife has birthed and I've helped to bring up, because that's what counts. So why sacrifice everything for business if your relationship at home is breaking down or your kids don't know you? It's not worth it, right? So it's all an act of balance, but there's no such thing as work-life balance. It's work-life integration. It's figuring out how do you do all this and bend but not break, never break.
Yeah. Bend, not break, adapt, be supple. Yeah. Great. So is there anything else you would like to give or like to share towards the Yachting International Radio audience? Anything for the young guys and also anything for your last, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what Pasini Yachts embodies is We aim to produce products, literally vehicles that allow you to enjoy the fruits of your labor today. And our mission is to have a population of people who will come enjoy the brand and fall in love with yachting again and again. And that's something that I think a lot of the industry doesn't focus enough on around the experience of why do you go into yachting and why do you love yachting? Because when you start loving it, it's intergenerational. Your kids start loving it. Their kids start loving it, right? Yet there's so much more about it that can be improved. So I would just say, like, as an industry, let's look at everything and say, hey, should we be doing things just for a very high profit margin? Should we be doing things to say, hey, let's really allow people to use these vehicles in a way that allows them to maximize enjoyment of their lives and to enjoy time with their family and with their loved ones.
Absolutely. So more time spent on water. Yes, absolutely. Good. Mm-hmm. Great. So thank you so much for your time, Tharin. And
thank you.
For the audience, for the listeners, so Pasini Yachts, watch that space. We're currently raising 3 million euros to get the prototype done. And and already now you have raised 1 million euros pre-seed stage. And this is a great example on how you can create purpose and how you how you flow in it without having to plan anything, and how everything in life that you have experienced, you have learned, comes all together in one project like this. And I like to focus also more time spent with your loved ones, no matter if it's on water or your family. And yes, no business is worth it to sacrifice your health, your well-being, your family, spending less time with your loved ones, or creating a family, for instance, for all of those who are career women, just saying. So, okay, thank you so much. And next week we're going to speak to Family Hippocampus. So you get an idea about families and how self-synchronicity and self-care gets intertwined. Perfect. Thank you so much for your time, Tharin.
Thank you, Geraldine.
I see you soon. Speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon.